Good evening to everyone. Welcome to the show. I'm here sitting in Efrat. It's north of Jerusalem, right?
South.
South of Jerusalem, sorry. And it's the biggest city, not the biggest, it's the biggest suburb outside Jerusalem, with the CEO of Keren Efrat, Mr. Shmil Atlas. Could you tell us, Shalom, Shmil, could you tell us who you are and what do you do?
Shalom lekulam, to the wonderful people of Sweden. My name is Shmil, and I'm the Executive Director of the Efrat Development Foundation. The Efrat Development Foundation is a subsidiary non-for-profit organization that took upon himself to look after the health, the security, the welfare, the informal education over here of the residents of Efrat and the surrounding area. And we are funding all types of bricks and mortars and projects in order to enable all of this happen in this wonderful town of Efrat.
Could you tell us, we're surrounded by, we are on the hill, right?
That's correct.
We are on a hill. The whole city built on the hill, right? Why?
It's a very interesting question. Apparently, if you look at the map of Efrat, and you will see how Efrat is layered in a very strange way. It's layered like a very long spaghetti or sausage, hot dog, depends where you're coming from. And it's very interesting to understand what made the architects of a city to look like this, and I can promise you, and you can check it after the show, if you look everywhere, you won't be able to find another city like this in all around the world that's shaped so awkward.
And the reason is?
And the reason is basically that when the people that built Efrat decided to build Efrat, they wanted to live in coexistence with the Arabs living around us. In order to do so,
those big villages around there and there.
Yeah, we'll be able, to see them very closely to us. They're very close to us. They're in amount of, minutes walks to Efrat. And when they built Efrat, they decided that they want to live in coexistence with them. So they built only on fields that were privately owned by Israelis or owned by the Israeli government. In any place that we knew that there is a field or a plot of land that is belonged to an Arab, we bypassed it. Now, we are sitting on hills in between two valleys. There is a valley to the east and there is a valley to the west, and these valleys are all landed by agriculture land, because when the rain come and go from the mountain into the valley, this is a place where it's best to put agriculture, especially when you're talking about a situation many years ago when there weren't irrigation, it wasn't water irrigated areas. So all of these areas, all of these plants of agriculture belong to Arabs. Now, in order to live in coexistence, we void ourselves to build only in a place that weren't agricultural land or weren't belong
to anyone else.
So this is the reason why we built on the top of the hills and in the valleys in between the hills. So Efrat is very long and narrow. This created a very good relationship with the Arabs living around us. It extended later on due to the fact that we have quite a lot of doctors that live here, that we have doctors that go and visit the Arab villages and give pro bono services to the people. It moved forward, connecting these villages into our emergency water supply system, and arrive until today that we have on average 1,100 Arabs, what we call Palestinians, coming on a daily basis to work in Efrat without any problem, without any hassles, can provide afterwards back to their families, and we have very, very good relationship between the villagers and to ourselves.
The people that lives around here, how do they see you as an occupier or?
It's a very interesting question because when I visit their villages, on a weekly basis, I will go there, have coffee with them. They'll come, and having coffee with us. We have a very, very good relationship. They prefer it to be like this because in the end of the day, unfortunately, today the Palestinian Authority is corrupt, doesn't have enough ability to provide the right services to their people, to their own people. As I said, we have 1,100 Palestinian workers coming here on a daily basis.
They're working in Efrat.
You're working in
1,100
Efrat,
people.
1,100 people.
Daily.
And you ask them, why do you come to work over here at the settlements? Why don't you go and work somewhere else? So first of all, they said, in the Palestinian Authority, there's no work. If there is work, nobody promised, to pay you. And if they pay you, we receive a third from what we receive in working over here. One of them said a very interesting, we had a group, and one of the guys from the village came and talked to the group, and he told them very interesting sentence. When they asked him, what do you think about these people in Efrat, and you live over there, and they conquered you and whatever, and it says, we would like to tell you something very interesting. Their democracy talking about the Israelis' democracy, put behind bars prime minister and a president. Our president, meaning, Arafat and then Mahmoud Abbas, put democracy behind bars. We prefer their democracy than our president. They, without any wonders, prefer, the setup over here. We have, as I said, very good relationship. They are enjoying this relationship, and we are enjoying this relationship. Every holiday, every Arab holiday, Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha, we are going there and celebrating it with them. They coming here every time in Sukkot. We have a very big welcome, and they are celebrating with us. By the way, 2 years ago, we had the first time that they came over here to the Sukkah of the mayor of Efrat in the holiday of Sukkot. And they were very excited because we had over here about 100 people that live here in the area. We had, police officers, and we have army officers that came from all this region, led by a general of the army, an equivalent rank from the police. And there were about 30, 40 Palestinians, that came. And we had a wonderful morning, sitting down together, eating, drinking, talking with each other. But what happened is that they were so excited to see the general in full guard that they started to take selfies with him. And they took the selfies, and they did what you do today with selfie. You post it online. Okay, you put it on Facebook. You send it to all your friends. The next morning, 5 a.m., the phone rings at the mayor office, in the mayor home. And as the mayor says, 5 a.m., if the phone rings at the mayor home, it's not good news.
Something happened.
So one of these people that organized this whole convention to happen, call him and says, we were summoned by the security police of the Palestinian Authority, and we are arrested, 4 people. And he says, why you are arrested? You just came to drink coffee. In the accusation of collaborating and having peace talks with the Zionist enemy. So
what happened to these 4 guys who took selfie with the general?
Yes.
Got arrested.
So they got arrested, and the mayor basically told them, listen, there's not a lot that I can do. It's Palestinian Authority. It's not that I have any control of them, but keep me posted. The evening comes, and he started to receive phone calls from the wives, from the children, crying. Where is our husbands? They disappeared. Nobody could reach them. Nobody can find, any type of, connection with them. They totally disappeared from the earth. So our mayor, connected all the peace organization, the Red Cross, Shalom Achshav, and all this organization. And he says, we are very sorry. It's Sukkot vacation now. We're not working. So nobody was willing to come and to help these 4 poor people. So he started to post on Facebook, and he have a lot of followers on Facebook. So 3 senators from the United States straight away, heard the story, reported back to us, says, how can we help? So they put a lot of pressure on the American administration that started to put pressure on the PA. Then Benjamin Netanyahu also got involved, and after 4 days they were released. After they pay a fine. What is the fine? Bribery money.
Yeah.
They need to pay 75,000 shekels bribery money to get released from jail.
And where did they get that money?
They had to pay it from their own pocket, and the mayor said that he will help. He will help him because he felt horrible because he invited the guests to come and be with him, and he was they were arrested.
And all they did, it was
drinking coffee,
with
eating
Israeli
the cake
army.
with us.
Yeah, but then some of the guests were general.
Why they were generals? They didn't come to conduct anything. It was just fascinating. Now the general stood up. Who was the last person to speak, and he said something very interesting. And he says, I bless you people to coming here today. And the more things that will happen like this, the more congregations, the more happening that will happen in between Palestinians and Israelis, the less work is going to be to the army, because this coexistence will seize all the bad blood that is in region and area.
Shmil, is this, everyone talk about this Shalom Achshav, peace now, and this, that, and the other. Very beautiful soul. They want to help the Palestinians and all that. But they couldn't do that because it was a holiday, or it was not interesting. There was no media into it. And it's like if you take a selfie with the general, blame yourself.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Listen, and what happened, you would assume that after a situation like this would happen, that
no one would come.
No one would come, to be afraid. The next morning, after they went back to their homes and were released, they came to meet with whom? With the mayor. So they came to meet with the mayor, and the mayor was, all touched, and he prepared a whole pack of media that was covering this, okay? There were 2 days in a row front page in the Washington Post, okay? It was all over, the news over here, because as the senators in the United States started, to get involved, people say, what's going on here? You have, people coming to drink coffee with the neighbors and got arrested. And they said, we're not interested in this. We know who is the good guys and who is the bad guys. We know who is corrupt and who is helping us. Because unfortunately for us, and the PA is not interested in day-to-day life. They want to prevent normalization. Because if they will show here normalization, people understand that there is no war going, there's no obstacle to anything. Okay? So they try to prevent normalization. This is, we need just, to keep our head down and not taking pictures anytime that we're doing something like this. And in this past Sukkot, a week before Sukkot, they called the mayor and says, are we going to do this again this year? And he says, didn't you had enough? And he says, what are you talking about? This is already a tradition, but make sure there's no cameras.
No selfies with general.
No cameras.
All right.
And let me just tell you last thing about normalization. We're trying all the time in all of our hearts, really, to help these people because really the PA doesn't help them. Now, the interesting thing happened is that one of the main issues that they have is sewage. The sewage is not planned correctly, and they have sewage, going through the streets.
In the Arab villages.
Yeah. So the mayor offered them that to take the sewage and to connect it to the Efrat sewage. They were very happy with it. Then they went to the PA and came back. We're very sorry. The Palestinian Authority is not allowing us to connect our sewage to your sewage system. Says, why? So because they don't want Palestinian sewage to swim next to an Israeli sewage. So what can you do? You know, they don't want to have normalization. They don't want to have normalization. This is what it is. You know, so what we try to do is leave all the obstacle way of the government. We're going to live in peace. We're going to have coexistence with these people. We try to help them as much as we can. And this, you know, brings that, you know, this region is very unique in this type of aspect, that this coexistence is on a daily basis over here between us to our, you know, friends and neighbors.
But it does the thing that you are coexisting with them and you're working together and helping each other, and does it bother the Palestinian authorities?
They're not happy with it, of course.
Because then you cannot pinpoint like, no.
Listen, let me tell you an interesting story, okay? My parents had to flee Europe, the burning Europe, you know, in the time of the Holocaust. And when they arrived to Israel, my mother arrived to Israel in 1947 as a little girl. She fled out of Romania after the war. When she arrived over here to the shores of Israel, the British mandate stopped them and sent a whole boat of little children to Cyprus. But after a few months, because they were kids, they received a permission, a certificate to come and to live in Israel. Where they lived? They lived in a refugee center. They built refugees towns and they live in a refugee center.
Ma'abarot.
Ma'abarot. Now if you go today in Israel and you check how many people from the 8+ million people, you know, were lived, you know, born in Israel, and how many came from as refugees. The majority of the population of Israel are refugees or kids of refugees. And you travel all around Israel. Do you see any more ma'abarot?
No, but
No.
I noticed that the terms refugee,
Yes.
all over the world, it's okay. When you come to Sweden, you become as a refugee. I'm talking about Sweden because I live there. Then you, after a few years, you become a citizen, and that's it.
That's
But
correct.
Palestinians are inheriting grandchildren and grandchildren the refugee status, and that's not good.
But not only this, the reason that around the world you don't see refugees camp, okay, in Israel you don't see refugees, and I assume in Sweden, why? Because the government understands that this status is not good for society. So they built cities, and slowly they move out the people from the refugee camps to the cities. If you go to Bethlehem, there is a refugee camp by the name of Daheshe that for 50 years of refugee camp. How come? They receive money from the EU, from the USA, from all the world. They don't want to take them out of there because it's a
good card.
It's a good card. It's a good milking cow. Okay, what would happen if they will, you know, put them in housing? They won't be able to get more money.
And they will have to start
Working.
living their own life and
Yeah.
working. Okay, Shmil, where are we standing now?
We're standing on one of the highest points in Efrat, which we have a spectacular view. But the most important thing for us to understand is the proximity in between Efrat to the surrounding neighbors, okay? This village called Abdallah Ibrahim, and you can see the first house is about less than, I would say, 50 meters to where we are standing. Efrat have something very, very interesting that is not surrounded by a fence. So basically, if we didn't have this wonderful coexistence, terrorists,
You would have a fence here.
you would have to have a fence here. You know, you would be afraid that the neighbors will try to harm you. But thank God that we have good relationship with the friends, and we don't need to have a fence over here. You can see how close, how the proximity is over here to our neighbors. What is very interesting also, that the road that you see the cars, you know, traveling in, was supposed to be the famous
Wall.
security fence, the wall that they're talking about. This security fence is covering all of the area of Bethlehem, but over here for 10 kilometers we don't have a security fence. This was the only place in Israel that Arabs and people from Israel gave a hand in the fight against of the fence. We didn't want to have a fence. Our neighbors, the Arabs, didn't want to have a fence. We went to court, to the High Supreme Court, but unfortunately both us and the Palestinians lost in the legal battle. But good for us that we won in the financial battle, because somehow the budget was finished, and even though that they put the road in, they didn't put on this a fence, or the security fence, and you can see exactly where it happened. It happened over there. You can see there is a paved road, as suddenly the paved road go into a dirt road. This is exactly the point where the budget was finished.
Is this a school there?
Yes.
Arab school.
Yes. And usually, I don't know if you know, but usually, when the big riots, a lot of time the Palestinians use, the children of the school to come and to throw stones and to create the riots again, just to show how good are the relationship. You have a school over here, no riots, no issues, no, hostility, just beautiful coexistence together. All the way there, you can see on top you can see the mountains of Jordan, and over there the mountain that look like a little Masada is the Herodian. It used to be the spa of King Herod. King Herod built himself a wonderful spa outside of Jerusalem. We can come and heat his cold to warm his cold bones over there, and it's a fascinating place to visit. This whole area is surrounded by Jewish history. For example, when we're talking about Abraham taking Isaac to the Temple Mount to sacrifice him, they came from the south, from Be'er Sheva. The road that went, the ancient road that went from Be'er Sheva up to Jerusalem and up to Shiloh, is the ancient road that called Derech HaMelech, the King Road. Derech HaMelech went on top of the mountains, followed from Be'er Sheva to Hebron, and went through these mountains. It could be 50 meters to the east, of 100 meters to the west, but Abraham was walking here in this land. When we talk about the famous story in Megillat Ruth, the famous story about Ruth. So Ruth came back with Naomi all the way back to Bethlehem. And then she fell in love with a beautiful man by the name of Boaz. And the story continues that when Boaz wanted to marry Ruth, he was blessed by the elderly people that sat on the gate, "May you be prosper in Ephrathah." And this is Ephrathah. Over here at the outskirts of Bethlehem, the fields were just around here. So we are heavily connected to this area from biblical times until today. This is also a very interesting thing, because again, as I said, Efrat is not surrounded by a fence. But still we have 1,100 workers, Palestinian workers, that want to come and enter to Efrat on a daily basis. In order to work over here, you need to have a special permit that you're licensed to come and to work inside Efrat. So what you see over here, you will have buses coming from Bethlehem and from all the other Arab towns around here. And these 1,100 workers pass through this gate on a daily basis.
This yellow gate over there.
The yellow gate and all this little building. They coming in, they give, they show their identification that they allow to come and work here. And from here, there are buses that take them into the working areas. In 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you'll see them all leaving. So even though there is no fence, even though there is no restriction for them to try and to steal the road inside, everything is done here like, like proper. You're coming into Efrat, you're coming in through the gate, and then you come, you work, and then you leave through this gate, and everything is done peacefully and nicely.
The city behind there, what is it?
The city behind there is Bethlehem, okay? Bethlehem that we spoke about to the north of us. And beyond Bethlehem, we can see already Jerusalem. We can see on the top of the mountains, on the left-hand side, we can see the tower of Mount Scopus of the university. And to the right-hand side, we can see the two towers, the two minarets of the Mount of Olives. This shows the proximity to Jerusalem. Efrat is like a suburb to Jerusalem. The majority of the people of Efrat working in Jerusalem and in Tel Aviv and commuting on a daily basis from here to there.
Okay, welcome to the community vineyard of the Efrat Educational Farm. This is our brand new vineyard, planted in part by our friends from Sweden and the north of Europe. As you can see, it's really brand new. You can barely see the vines. If I step over here, underneath these cartons, we have the new vines, Cabernet Sauvignon vines. The carton is to protect the vines, the new vines, from the wind, from too much sun. And we've already created the structure here for them to grow up. In their first year, they'll grow up to this wire. We'll prune them and we'll start producing fine wine. According to Jewish law, we can only start producing wine after the third year of growth. First 3 years, they sit and we form the vines, we produce grapes that will not be eaten, but in the fourth year we will start producing wine. So we see here we have a few rows. Over here is the row that we've dedicated to the donations we received from our current campaign. And as I said, all the vines here in this first section, which is 100 vines, are Cabernet Sauvignon. Okay, we've reached the level where our main vegetable patch is, and that's in the background. But in the foreground, we have a couple mounds of tree mulch. We have an arrangement with the city of Jerusalem where they have lots of trees they have to prune every year, lots of trees that collapse when it snows, and they have to get rid of the mulch. So they bring it out to us, and we use it to spread around to prevent weeds from growing, to prevent evaporation, so we don't have to irrigate as much. And also so the kids don't have to walk in the mud. Kids love coming here overall, but they don't like getting dirty. They're afraid their mother's gonna get mad at them when they get home with muddy clothing. So if we can have them walking on the mulch instead of in the mud, which this mud is really sticky and goopy, it makes everybody much happier. So it limits how much we have to irrigate. It limits also a lot how much we have to spray against weeds because fewer weeds grow up. Now over there we have the vegetable patch. We'll scan it as we come close, and we try to grow a variety of things. First of all, we want things that kids can take home and share with their families so they can be proud of what they've done. And we also want them to know that vegetables don't grow on the supermarket shelf. So we have wheat growing, we've got artichokes growing, we've got eggplants and radishes and garlic. And we even have hummus. Everybody likes to eat hummus. It's become a worldwide craze to dip the hummus in the hummus. We're growing the chickpeas so that they can see where the hummus comes from. We have a row of aloe, we have rows of cabbages, and we're getting ready to prepare for the spring plantings because spring is coming early this year. Let's go down there. Modern wheat has been hybridized to grow so much grains on every single stalk. Here, the gene bank or the seed bank of the Ministry of Agriculture, which is at the Volcani Institute, has decided they want to preserve the old varieties, and they send out packages of varieties to various educational institutions so we grow it and maintain it. And what we are able to show the kids is, A, compare this and learn what the difference between the ancient varieties and the new variety that we have 2 rows over, as well as teaching them, look what your forefathers ate. When they talks about on Passover eating matzah, the unleavened bread at the Seder. So this is the type of wheat they may have been using at the time. So you see the wheat here, yeah, a little bit of weeds, but that never hurt anybody. And behind is the artichokes. And then you see the purple of the purple cabbage down there. In between we had the green cabbages that we just finished distributing to the children, so that's why those rows are empty. We have to till those. And we're going to get everything started for the summer crops.
Thank you.
My pleasure.